This is a mock interview conducted by Forum IAS Academy at New Delhi. The interview panel includes eminent academicians, retired bureaucrats, and other luminaries. The objective of the program is to acquaint the candidate with the format and expectations of the personality test conducted by UPSC.
May I come in, sir?
Please come in.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Please
sir.
stand. बैठिए.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Shruti. I find your anthropology is your subject.
Yes, sir.
How would you describe the main differences in the caste system between the north and the south? So between UP and Tamil Nadu.
Sir, sorry, I'm unable to recall this specifically.
Okay. In UP, you have Brahmins, Thakurs, Banyas, like this, Khatris. So it's a continuous spectrum.
Yes, sir.
In the south, it is a very small number of Brahmins, and then a big gap, and then some other caste, and a big gap. It's a discrete spectrum.
Okay, sir.
So because of that, it was easier for these people to get organized and the justice movement.
So that is why South mobilized first.
Yes, that's why there was no such movement in the north, because caste system is like this. Okay, fine. The other question is about take India as a whole or even as North India. In the last 100 years, what changes have taken place in the caste system?
So in the last 100 years, firstly, before independence period, we saw the emergence of some caste movements. And sir, caste mobilization to some extent was present, and then after independence we saw some constitutional protection to the different castes, and in the later years, due to some grievances amongst the castes, we also saw the emergence of some Dalit specific movements like Dalit Panther movement in the 80s. And sir, now we have seen that castes, the lower castes have specifically mobilized, have mobilized into some specific movements for their rights.
Okay. Since you talked about the Dalits, tell me, between the Dalits and the scheduled tribes, which group has done better in economic indicators?
Sir, I think it is Dalits.
And why?
Sir, because what we have seen that there was mobilization among the Dalits. And sir, scheduled tribes are actually very fragmented entities. There are differences among the different tribes also. There are varieties there. So they were not able to mobilize as a group. So since they were not able to mobilize, they could not raise their demands to some extent, and hence they could not achieve economic development.
But this is, you should read more about this. There are various factors.
Okay, sir.
One is scheduled castes live in fertile regions like Punjab, Haryana. Their
Yes,
labor is
sir.
demanded
Yes,
there.
sir.
Scheduled tribes live in plateau region. Land is not so fertile. Scheduled tribes are isolated, so there is no demonstration effect. Scheduled castes live in the same village. They can see upper caste student going and studying.
Yes, sir.
Then leadership, Ambedkar, Jagjeevan Ram, Pansi Ram, etc. No such all India leadership.
Yes, sir.
So all kinds of factors. You should read a little more on this.
Yes, sir.
Lastly, tell me, of all the government of India schemes where the substantial amount is being made, if you were in a position to drop some schemes, which are the schemes that you should are not doing well, should be dropped?
So I don't see that any scheme should be dropped. Probably we should merge some schemes. That is
Like?
possible.
Like which
Sir,
schemes?
I think we have a lot of schemes for employment generation, specifically for the unorganized sector. So merging them and properly implementing them is more important.
Let me ask you last question now. How is hunger defined in India or internationally? How is hunger defined internationally?
Sir, I am not aware of the exact.
Hunger is a combination of 3 different factors: calorie consumption, malnutrition, and child mortality rate.
So, Shruti Rajlakshmi.
Yes, sir.
So you have scored very, very well in 10th, 12th, then BTech. What exactly do you do in Goldman Sachs? What is the job profile of this analyst's job?
Sir, so I worked in the risk division of the firm. So I was majorly responsible for the technical implementation of the strategies that they used for determining the risk with various financial instruments.
So can you define what is risk?
So risk is the probability essentially that whatever I have invested would or we can say quantify in terms of the worst amount of loss that is possible when I invest in particular instrument.
See, you have studied from IIT BHU, and IIT BHU has always been a very good college with a great reputation. Then what exactly was the need to stick an IIT tag to it? It was good even without it.
Yes, sir. The college was of great reputation. But, sir, the IIT tag, firstly, the examination for IIT BHU had always been through the joint entrance examination or the IIT JEE. But, sir, the perception among the people increases when the IIT tag is associated. And secondly, it also leads to the designation of institute. If IIT tag is associated, it becomes an institute of national importance also. And sir, I think the college college would receive more funding from the central government for researches. And sir, I think it can also attract more companies for placement from outside countries or other countries, sir.
Okay, what are the privileges associated with being an institute of national importance?
Sir, I'm not aware of the exact privileges.
Okay, have you heard of IIT Act?
IIT Act, yes, in 1961, I think.
So, do you think we should build more IITs, like there has been a proliferation of IITs, or should we try to build new brands? For example, USA has several brands. They have a Stanford, they have a Harvard, then they have Johns Hopkins, and then they have this and that. But in IITs, we are only expanding IITs, IIT this, IIT that, IIT that. Don't you think that is a bad strategy? Because if IIT name falls, then it is going to fall for everyone.
Sir, I think that IITs have a certain brand value associated with them. Definitely, we should also work on expanding the improving the learning of quality in different colleges also, because they are also engineering colleges and they also should receive the proper funding. So, but sir, I don't think anything is wrong with expanding IITs also, but we should focus on other brands also.
Okay. How would you stop brain drain from IITs?
So, the major reason for brain drain from IITs would be that there are attractive or lucrative offers from MNCs which take people outside. So, sir, what we can do here is that focus on domestic IT industries, and so that the people work for companies of India. And secondly, we should make research more lucrative for people in terms of the monetary compensation, so that people stay here and do research for their country.
Is there any Government of India scheme which has been targeted towards IITians to keep them within the research after
Sir,
their
I
graduation?
think PMNRF is a scheme which gives scholarship for students who are willing to study in Indian institutes for their PhD programs. Sir, I'm only aware of this scheme.
Okay. So, how would you promote women in STEM fields?
Promoting women in STEM fields would firstly require that we improve the number of women who take STEM at the 11th and 12th level. So there is a perception that women are not good at technology. So they don't take up a science field in 11th class. So we have to build awareness for that. And sir, we can, as we also have some supernumerary seats in IITs to have more women in the technology field. And sir, thirdly, after also getting a job, women often leave their jobs in their mid-career because of household responsibilities and childcare responsibilities. So all the companies should provide some form of maternity leave that is provided, but creche or daycare system should also be provided so that they don't leave their job.
You are earning 2,20,000 rupees per month in Goldman Sachs. In Government of India, your joining remuneration will be less than half of it.
Yes, sir.
Why are you making such a choice?
Sir, I'm making this choice because I wanted to join the civil services because I think that it has it will give me a platform to work across multiple sectors. Sir, money may not matter more. Money does not matter actually more for me because in the end I want to work directly for the people because it offers me satisfaction.
So, Shruti, you have worked with Goldman Sachs. So I think you should be understanding a bit of business and stock market and everything. Tell me one thing that what linkage Sensex has got with Ukraine crisis? Is there any linkage between movement of Sensex and Ukraine crisis, or there is no linkage?
Sir, what my understanding says that usually people run to safety when any crisis comes. So the safety is in terms of dollars. So people start withdrawing money from the Indian market and take it back to the US market to be in safety. So that is what I think.
You are a technical guy, so tell me one thing. That we Indians are very smart technologically, and we have put Mangalyaan, and every day we listen to that. So many satellites have been put. But why still that 7 out of 10 Chinese phones we have? Vivo, Apple, all the 10 phones we put and 7 are Chinese. What's the problem? When we can make Mangalyaan, why can't we make our Indian mobile phones? Reason?
Sir, first of all, what has been the dominance of the Chinese is predominantly because the phones are cheaper in nature.
Why can't we be cheap? Why can't we be cheap?
Sir, because we have not had that amount of investment, particularly for the manufacturing of mobile phones. So, what we need to do is invest more, and we are also dependent on a lot of raw materials for outside countries like semiconductors we need to import for making mobile phones. So we have to be self-sufficient in manufacturing these so that we can make mobile phones. I think the recent PLI scheme is focusing on that.
So do you think that in 3 to 5 years we can have a scenario where majority of the smartphones shall be Indian? Can we assume so?
So definitely, if the scheme works well, we will have a lot of potential in the mobile industry.
Would you like to offer any suggestion for this scheme, or the scheme as in its present form is okay?
Sir, the only problem I think with the scheme is that it focuses more on assembly part. We are not focusing on the manufacturing part, that we have the components also sourced from here and we manufacture it here. And we are also giving some incentives to the companies who are who belong to foreign countries. So that is also good because it would be made in India product, but we should focus more on our domestic industries to be self-sufficient.
You come from the state Jharkhand, and Jharkhand, Bihar and East UP particularly. Caste politics plays a very important role, right? But recently we have found that a new term, a new vote bank has emerged called beneficiary. इसे हिंदी में हम लाभार्थी बोलते हैं ना? And from Punjab to recent UP election, we find that Labhartis, beneficiaries have voted. What do you think that now the caste system is being dismantled, or a new vote bank has arisen, and very soon we shall see the end of caste system in politics in particularly East UP, Bihar and Jharkhand because of Labharti?
Yes, sir. The various schemes, the beneficiaries of the schemes have voted for those benefits this time, it seems. So no, I cannot say that whether the caste system would end, but I definitely see that there is a trend towards beneficiary-oriented voting. So probably people are now more caring about the schemes. That is also true in Punjab, where the promises made in the manifesto are responsible for the coming of the party. And in UP also, we had some schemes due to which the parties came to power. So yes, sir, I think that beneficiary-oriented voting will be the future, sir.
My last question, that you have mentioned that you read mythological stories, right? We have been reading that. Our ancestors had, forefathers had this aeroplane, Pushpak Viman, and we had the first surgeon of the world, Sushrut. So can we say that this is 100% truth and we were the first inventor of aeroplane, or we were the first surgeon of the world, or these are only stories? Tell me from technical background.
So, what my perception is that in their initial forms, when these stories were written, these were actual stories. But then over the time, with a lot of exaggeration, the stories became mythology. So, in the earlier forms, probably in Ramayana also, the form which was probably written by Valmiki, I think he mentions that it is the history of India. But in the later forms, when we have Ramcharitmanas thing, that becomes a bit exaggerated version, and normal people acquire godlike proportions. So that is my view.
And please explain to me, why did Lord Krishna not marry Radha?
Sir, I think their love was not in the sense of the marriage kind of love. It was a pure kind of love. But the story which goes behind it is that Radha was already married to somebody, at least in the later versions. And the person who she was married to was somebody whom Lord Vishnu had granted a boon, that because he was penanцing for having Lakshmi as his wife. So he said that, okay, you can have Lakshmi as his wife, but you will not have a relationship kind of thing with her. I think that is why he did not marry her.
So, okay. Hello, Shruti.
Sir.
So you are working with, you had been working with Goldman Sachs.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of the 2008 financial crisis?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what exactly led to that crisis?
So, sir, the banks in US that time were on a lending spree, essentially. They were lending to mortgage buyers who wanted to buy homes. And did not check the credentials of the people who they were lending to in a proper manner. And that is why those loans started defaulting. And since banks had a lot of interconnectedness between them, so since the Lehman defaulted, the other banks also kind of got at the risk of doing that, and then Fed had to bail them out.
So do you think that the risk, like you said, that you also worked in risk, so that risk department within these banks failed?
Yes, sir. There were no separate division of risk at that time in these banks. They had an internal risk division, particularly in Goldman, they had a firm-wide risk division only after the crisis. So yes, sir, the risk division kind of failed that time because their warnings were not taken into account.
And were there any external ratings also on risk?
I'm not aware of any.
Moody's, have you heard of Moody's?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Moody, Fitch, and
So
CRISIL
what
in
happened
India.
there? Why didn't they red flagged that crisis beforehand?
I don't know the exact reason for that.
And do you think that probably you might have read that those agencies were also at fault, but had any action been taken against them?
I don't know this, sir.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay, all right, no issues. So are you aware of the valuation principles also, on what basis you value? For example, if I ask you, how would you value a firm? So do you know any valuation models?
So valuation models, I'm only aware that what kind of risk factors we use to assess basically an instrument. Like we have interest rate, we have credit risk within the market risk.
No issues. So you are from Jharkhand.
Yes, sir.
And Jharkhand, being a very resource-rich region, yet it is very backward.
Yes, sir.
So what do you think are the reasons for the backwardness?
So the major reason has been the unstable politics of Jharkhand, in the sense that chief ministers did not complete their tenure and there were a lot of coalition governments. So there was no stable policy for development. And sir, secondly, Naxalism has been a major factor. That kind of decreased the investor confidence there. And also, sir, there was illegal trafficking of minerals being carried, which deprived the state of the revenue. And thirdly, sir, in the earlier stages, there was a lot of fierceness of the development projects, and which kind of displaced the tribals. So they are not very happy with that experience, and hence kind of oppose the developmental projects.
So you are saying that despite the creation of Jharkhand was specifically created from Bihar so that it could undergo development. So do you think that that experiment has failed, creating more states or creating smaller state, that hasn't been successful?
No, sir, I don't think the experiment has failed. So, there have been some challenges, but it has been around 22 years of Jharkhand's creation, and now we have had a stable government previously. And if it goes on in the future and the policies are stable, I think Jharkhand will do well.
Your assertion is that if there is a stable government, then there are higher chances of development. So does that hold true for Bihar? Bihar, there has been a stable government, I think, since 2005 or maybe even earlier.
Yes,
so do you see any improvement there?
Sir, the problems in Bihar are a bit different. Sir, earlier the law and order situation was very bad in Bihar, and so it could not take benefits of any of the liberalization reforms we had. But even after 2005, illiteracy in Bihar is quite high, and especially the status of women is very low. So if Bihar was a country, the LFPR of women there would have been the highest in the world. So their participation is missing from Bihar, and population has been a major factor. It has a lot of population, so the benefits are not appropriated to everybody. And sir, even agriculture, Bihar is agriculture centered, and the lack of investment, the irrigation use and technology use in agriculture and small land holdings have been reasons for its underdevelopment.
So if you were to suggest 3 steps to the Bihar government, to develop a plan for the, to say take it into top 10 states in terms of resources or in terms of GDP, state GDP. So what would be those 3 recommendations?
Sir, first I would say that I would focus on increasing the productivity of agriculture, because a lot of people depend on it. And sir, secondly, I would also work on the improvement of education there, the quality of education, that would kind of improve the status of women, and also probably bring about a decrease in the caste-centered politics. And sir, thirdly, I would focus on the specific products of Bihar which are made by some communities which can find a great export market. For example, Bhagalpuri silk has a very good export market, so promoting such products will help Bihar.
Okay, all right. I think that's all from my side.